Without a doubt, week 6 of NCAA wrestling was the most action-packed week we have seen yet. We had Cliff Keen, Las Vegas. We had every major team in action. I'm going to give you the rundown on all the major happenings of week 6 in NCAA wrestling. We'll talk Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State's big performance, and of course, Cliff Keen, Las Vegas. Tons of changes, tons of upsets, a lot of shakeups in the rankings. So let's get into it. Starting at 125 pounds. The big story here, Matt Ramos winning CKLV, looking really tough against a very, very good field. We had a little disappointment at 25 when Vincent Robinson, the tough freshman for NC State, had to medically forfeit in his quarterfinal match against Matt Ramos. Vince has looked amazing so far. He had an ankle injury the match previously, so we didn't get to see that matchup. Hope Vince heals quickly and we're able to see him back in action because he's an exciting guy. And we're still trying to figure out, is this a guy, Vince Robinson, who can win a title? There's no doubt about it. Matt Ramos looks like a guy that can win a national title this year. And absent seeing Richard Figueroa much this year, he has looked like the best guy in the country at 125 pounds. Other happenings at 125, we had Flynn of Minnesota taking out Steve O'Poulin at the Cougar Clash, and Luke Lillidahl wrestled in kind of a big duel debut against Lehigh, a ranked opponent in Sheldon Seymour. And it was a win for Luke Lillidahl, but a pretty close one. Sheldon Seymour is a real scrapper, and I think a lot of Penn State fans learned that in this match as Lillidahl was able to just score one takedown, but that was all he needed to take out the Mountain Hawk in what was a really exciting duel for Penn State fans. Going to 133, maybe the biggest result of all, or one of the most discussed matchups, was the matchup between Penn State's Braden Davis and Lehigh's Ryan Crookham. And it was a one takedown match. Ryan Crookham took a shot, hit a little sucker drag out of the front headlock, and was able to get that takedown. No riding time points. It was just a one takedown difference in the match. Davis was able to get in, but as is often the case, was not able to get the score. So Ryan Crookham, ranked number 1, able to maintain that number 1 ranking. But really, maybe the biggest story, even bigger than that, was the breakout tournament for Cal Poly's Seth Romney. This guy was an absolute revelation. He wrestled very well. He beat a number of ranked wrestlers. He beat Nick Bouzakis. He beat Jacob Van D. And then he beat Evan Frost of Iowa State, an All-American, in the finals. This guy is slick. He's big for the weight. He's hard to score on. Really good positionally. Definitely looks like a wrestler that can make a deep, deep run at the NCAA tournament. And certainly coming into this Cliff Keen Las Vegas, that was not the narrative around Seth Romney. So he had a breakout performance. And the number 1 seed, Dylan Ragusin, had a really tough tournament. He lost to Jacob Van D, Nick Bouzakis, and Derek Cardinal to place 8th at Cliff Keen Las Vegas. So definitely major shakeups at 133, no doubt about it. Other around the country at 133, you had Zan Fugit of Wisconsin having a couple big wins. He took out Noto of Lock Haven. He also beat Bucknell's Phipps. So he's looking really good. He only has 1 loss in the year. That's to Oklahoma State's Cale Hughes. And in the Oklahoma State vein, 133, definitely a weight that's being contested. But right now it's Reese Whitcraft for Oklahoma State that looks to have that job, at least for the time being, placing 4th at Cliff Keen Las Vegas. He lost in round 1, battled all the way back for 4th place. And for Oklahoma State, I may as well start with them or get going about their tournament. They were the first team since 1983 to have 9 wrestlers placed in the top 4 at Cliff Keen Las Vegas. Truly a rare feat accomplished by Coach Taylor and the Cowboys, who ran away with the team title at Cliff Keen Las Vegas. And performances like Reese Whitcraft were a good example of just the kind of fight and scrap that Coach Taylor's Cowboys were showing. And moving on to 141, one of the stories was an Oklahoma State Cowboy, Tegan Jamison, pulling the upset over Brock Hardy in the semifinal before falling to Jesse Mendez, who looks very, very good at 141 pounds. So 141, that was kind of the main storylines there. Mendez looking tough as ever, looking ready to repeat as national champion, and Tegan Jamison climbing a couple spots in the rankings after taking out Brock Hardy, who Hardy wrestled back for 3rd, had a pin in that 3rd and 4th place match. Moving on to 149, Caleb Henson widened the gap, maybe you could say, against Ridge Lovett. It was 2 takedowns to none. Ridge had a reversal and an escape, but making it a 3-3 after regulation, and then Henson got another takedown to win it. Henson looks really good. You know, he had a tough match against Carter Young in the quarter where Carter got the first takedown. Caleb battled back, and then he had a similar sort of match against Jaden Abbas. But Caleb Henson, the reigning national champion, looks like he's poised to potentially repeat. Obviously, Ridge Lovett's there, and obviously Shane Van Ness looms for Penn State. Van Ness had another dominant win for Penn State. He continues to look absolutely fantastic at 149 for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Other 149 notes, Anthony Etchemandia. This guy was right there to beat Ridge Lovett. It was 2 takedowns to none. And then Ridge gets a reversal, puts Etchemandia on his back, and then that was all she wrote. Nearly getting the pin, but it was enough for Etchemandia. And then Etchemandia against Jaden Abbas, wrestling for 3rd and 4th, gets injured pretty bad on a counter from Abbas. It was, you hope it's not anything too serious, but Etchemandia had to be helped off the mat. Looked like an ankle, maybe a knee. He was kind of grabbing both. So definitely a scary sort of situation for the Cyclone. And Etchemandia on his feet is as good as anyone. It's the mat that continues to plague him, and now potentially health. Hope to see a quick recovery for Anthony Etchemandia. At 157, maybe the most controversial, 33 had a really controversial one with Frost and Klebov and the pin, no pin. But 157, Antrell Taylor versus Ryder Downey. Ryder has an uncanny ability to tilt his opponents once they get standing. He stands, he gets the wrist, he gets him down, and he rolls. And he rolled Antrell through, and it was a 1 count, and it looked like Antrell recovered, and then he got put back down for another 1 count. And if you ask one person, it's like that should have been 4 near fall. If you ask another, they'll say no near fall at all. And this was the deciding sequence, because after the near turn for Ryder Downey, Antrell Taylor gets the reversal and 2 swipes of his own that were also very controversial. Antrell wins 4-3 against a very tough Ryder Downey. And this was a tough field at 157. We had Joey Blaze, Peyton Keller, Patty Gallagher, Paniro Johnson. And Patty's emergence or reemergence at 157 was a big story here, because he missed last year with injury. He struggled to kind of maintain consistency, and now seeing him wrestle for 4th, he's currently, I think, someone that is entering that All-American conversation where maybe he was on the outside looking in previously. Elsewhere at 57, Caleb Fish from Oklahoma State. He was thought to be redshirting, but Teague Travis is out for the year with an injury. So in steps the transfer, Caleb Fish, who's at Michigan State previously, cuts down to 157. Had a really strong showing. He had a couple good wins. He beat Paniro, he beat Saldate, and then he had a couple medical forfeits to place 3rd. So good job by Caleb Fish, and a lot to be excited for in Stillwater about 157. At 165, Peyton Hall was kind of the story here. He beats Hunter Garvin again. He beats Cam Amin in the finals. Cam had a really tough win to get to the finals against Bubba Wilson, who really impressed me. But the story, another big story at 65, is Sammy Sasso. And we thought we'd learn a lot about where he's at. And while he failed to place, I still feel like Sammy is going to figure it out. And when he's wrestling from space and he has to, rely a little on his reaction time, it's going to be tough. But in the exchanges, when he's on the leg or when wrestlers are on his legs and he can stop the quick finish, Sammy looks really, really good. I think with time he's going to figure it out and emerge as an All-American contender at 165. But more than anything, it's just great to see Sammy on the mat competing. At 174, Dean Hamady wins this tournament, but really the story is Lorenzo Norman of Stanford. He was just running through guys all the way to the finals. A lot of takedowns. This is a guy that's hard to score on. He's really big for the weight. He can fire leg attacks and finish. And we saw Dean Hamady tech or pin or bonus his way to the finals. And then he gets Lorenzo Norman. Norman almost takes him down and then fires again, gets the takedown, and it's 3-3 or going into the final period. And Norman goes under, and Dean Hamady rides him out for the win. So a dominant performance by Dean Hamady, but he had to win a little bit differently in the finals. Hamady looks amazing, but Norman is without a doubt. We saw him beat Nelson Brands, but now seeing him do this at Cliff Keen, Las Vegas, he's a top 3, top 4 guy potentially for Stanford. And that was something that Coach Chris Ayers was telling us in the preseason. Lorenzo Norman is a beast, and this CKLV certainly prove that that's the case. And Norman, definitely someone to watch out for. Elsewhere at 74, Cade DeVos, really tough tournament. He took a couple of losses along the way, and they were a bit surprising. Lost to Garrett Thompson, among others. So he's going to fall in the rankings, which is going to make room for Lorenzo Norman to slide up even further. And at 184, Parker Keckeisen continues to have an advantage over Dustin Plott. Plott makes it to the finals. He actually had a really tough, hard-fought victory over Isaac Dean of Ryder. He was only 2-0, which is a pretty low-scoring affair for Dustin Plott. But then he gets to Parker, and Parker's kind of all over him. But I will say this, that there was a headbutt, and Dustin looked a little dazed after that, and the 2 takedowns for Parker came right after that. So for Dustin Plott, maybe you hang on to that, but at the end of the day, Parker Keckeisen is so good. And, you know, he and Carter Strachey still have that separation from the field. Carter had a dominant win at Lehigh, of course. And then elsewhere, Jackson Smith takes out Chris Foca at an open tournament. Foca is not wrestling this first semester. He'll be back second semester for Cornell at 184. But Jackson Smith definitely sliding under the radar right now at 184. He was been at 197 historically in the previous years. Now he's down at 184. Definitely a guy who could have a big impact at the weight class for Maryland. 197, no AJ Ferrari. He pulled out of Cliff Keen Las Vegas, reportedly with an injury. Don't know when we'll see AJ again, hopefully soon. He obviously would have been the story of Cliff Keen Las Vegas to see him in this field with tough guys like Jacob Cardenas. But we didn't see that. Instead, we saw Jacob Cardenas absolutely blitz his way to a Cliff Keen Las Vegas finals. He was teching guys, and then in the end, he hits his classic tilt, and then he just pushes the shoulder down when he's holding the guy in the tilt and pins him. It was a really impressive performance by Michigan's Jacob Cardenas, taking home the title. But the story at 197 is Penn State's Josh Barr and what he was able to do against Michael Beard. Beard's a multiple All-American for Lehigh, and Josh Barr, who was thought to be an undersized 197, I think he is. He's not as big as other 197s, but it did not matter at all in this match. 3 takedowns to none for Josh Barr. You know, he keeps passing the test and is moving up in difficulty and continuing to look dominant. And what gives you more excitement if you're a Penn State fan is Michael Beard in his entire career. This is a guy that's been on the scene for 5-6 years. He's only been majored twice. Once by Cardenas, or maybe it was Buchanan. Shoot. One of those. And then Trent Hidley. That's it. And so that puts Josh Barr in pretty rarefied air, right? And now where I thought Josh Barr could be a low All-American, relying on just his leg attacks, now you beat someone like Michael Beard, and it's not hard to see him being a top 4 potential guy. My co-hosts on FRL, you know, John Kozak, JD Ray, they're like, no, this dude's a legitimate title contender. I'm still pumping the brakes there. I need to see it. I need to see him deal with a bigger, more physical guy like a Buchanan and Cardenas. I think those are still really tough matchups for him. An AJ Ferrari, I want to see him beat that level of wrestler before I put him in that title contending, conversation. But you can't be anything but excited. This guy's a freshman. He's wrestling in a tough environment at Lehigh against Lehigh's best or second best wrestler, and he beat him, and he beat him soundly. It's a real statement from Josh Barr. Elsewhere, making statements, Iowa's Stephen Buchanan, a tech fall over Stout. Stout is stout. He's a hard guy to beat, and he beat him really badly. Stephen Buchanan continues to look really good at this weight, as does Jacob Cardenas. And we'll see what AJ Ferrari brings to the table. Still a bit of an unknown. Only 2 matches so far this year. And then closing it out, heavyweight, Wyatt Hendrickson. It was the Wyatt Hendrickson show. He teched or pinned his way to the finals, and then he got a pin in the finals against Isaac Trumbull. Bunch of takedowns, and then able to hit kind of like a suck back and just kind of big dog Trumbull to his back and gets the fall. And Trumbull had looked great in this tournament. He majored Colton Schultz, got a bunch of turns against Colton, who is, not an easy guy to turn. So very impressive showing by Trumbull, but Wyatt Hendrickson showing that separation. And Coach David Taylor was talking about Wyatt and saying, hey, he's really just kind of figuring out the top position. He's always been a pinner, but now he's really showing great improvement on top. A scary thought for the field at 285. But this 285 field is just insane. You got Gable Steveson, Greg Kerfley, and now Wyatt Hendrickson looking like an absolute point-scoring machine. So that was it. That's the highlights of an amazing Week 6 of NCAA wrestling. What I missed? What were the biggest storylines in your mind? What are you excited about as we look forward to the rest of the NCAA season?